Hello, my name is Jeremy Nathaniel Akers, and I'd like to talk to you today about the Liberating Structures Learning Journey. Now, every time we meet, we are using some form of tool, some form of social technology to organize our time and attention with one another. If you think about all the meetings you've ever attended in your entire life, chances are good that you made use of the 5 following Stone Age meeting tools that are presentation, status report, managed discussion, themed brainstorm, and open or unstructured group discussion. Now, these tools have a tendency of being on this spectrum where control over the participation in the meeting is either very centralized or distributed/absent, and that the people involved are either very, very minimal or, roughly halfish. Liberating structures, however, stand in contrast in that they distribute both influence and participation to effectively absolutely everybody involved in a discussion. Now, as opposed to these 5 Stone Age meeting tools, which at some points are appropriate. Like right now, I'm presenting information, right? That has some amount of value. Nevertheless, liberating structures stand in contrast in that there are 33 distinct patterns in the liberating structures toolkit. So as opposed to only having 5 choices, we have a lot of choices about what tools we want to use in meetings. What I'm going to show you today is how to use these icons that make up the liberating structures menu and the Ecocycle to keep track of your liberating structures learning journey so that you can measure your progress and see what you still have left to learn. So the Ecocycle is, again, a liberating structure. And in reference to our liberating structures learning journey, we move thusly. So if we take a basic structure like 1, 2, 4, all, and 1, 2, 4, all, exactly like it sounds, in response to some prompt or some invitation, I would offer you a minute to think silently by yourself, 2 minutes to have a brief one-on-one conversation and trade thoughts with another person, 4 minutes to have a small exchange of information in groups of 4, and then you would offer the briefest of summaries to the larger context of all of these different groups having the same structure of conversation. Now, out of the womb, 1, 2, 4, all sits in gestation. We all start off in a state of unconscious incompetence because we've never seen it, we've never tried it, we don't know it exists. But then, thanks to human culture, at some point, another person leads us through it and guides us through it, and our incompetence becomes conscious. We now know that it exists, and we may not know it. But even though we're in this state of conscious incompetence, and having been led by another person, we actually have everything that we need to move ourselves to the next stage in the learning journey, which is maturity, where we can then make use of that structure and host other people to use this pattern. And moving into this state of conscious competence, you will know, based on reality, exactly how competent you are to make use of this structure. And I would say the reason I think that this is maturity is because once you've tried it once, you're as good as anybody else in the world. Meaning that you know everything you need to know to continue to make use of it and learn, and that's it. That's the goal. So stick the landing, crash, never you mind, you're mature. From maturity, once more, you have everything you need to move into the next stage of the Liberating Structures learning journey, and that is creative destruction. And this is the ability to guide others to become hosts themselves, and this level of unconscious competence. And what I mean by guide others to host themselves is maybe in response to this video, you didn't know that 1-2-4 all was a thing, but just having had me explain it to you and not even actually use it, you could be ready to move yourself straight over to getting dangerous and hosting other people. And if I can do that, well, then my skill with creative destruction, or with 1-2-4 all, is in creative destruction, because I'm creatively destroying my capacity to host others by helping you become the host of others, right? I'm trying to make myself redundant and unnecessary for more people to use 1-2-4 all. So again, we can use each icon from Liberating Structures to keep track of our Liberating Structures learning journey. And, for example, now you have some familiarity with Ecocycle. You at least know that the pattern of Ecocycle exists. So you can now move yourself into the birth phase there. So a finished version of mapping out progress on the Liberating Structures learning journey, for me at least, looks something like this. Right? There's a bunch of structures that I feel very mature with. There's a whole bunch of structures that I feel like I'm in creative destruction with, that I can help people learn and practice and use directly. And there's still a couple structures that I've never tried out in the big, great, wide, wonderful world that is real life. So, like, pro tip, if you find yourself at an opportunity where you think, panarchy could be really helpful, or impromptu prototyping could be helpful, hit me up and let me know. I would love to come help you host these things and make another step on my own learning journey. So this is effectively how you would map the granular view of progress on your own Liberating Structures learning journey. And again, the reason you would do that is to keep track of your progress, but also have some recognition of what there is that is still left to learn. Now, as we use this to map our micro-level learnings, there's also a sort of growth hierarchy when it comes to the macro perspective of liberating structures at large. And that is effectively these 4 stages of despairing cynic. When you're familiar with no structures, you just think, hey, that's how the world is. And in order to make progress there, typically, someone like me would guide the exploration and help enable your own self-discovery towards using these tools. And, they would be very much, tools, right? That you may notice change well, play well with others, right? And, the fear that a person may have when they're not familiar with these structures, that I visualize as that chasm of fear, is, will I look foolish or unprepared the first time I go to use this? And that's a very real concern, right? So the Liberating Structures user group is one of the most effective tools, the state-of-the-art technology that can help build your confidence by creating safe context to practice and learn and grow together. So if you're not, join a Liberating Structures user group. You can hang out with me and join one of the several user groups I participate in order to learn and grow. Once you're familiar with a fistful of structures, plus or minus 5, you're a cautious optimist, right? And cautious optimists should, really focus on clarifying their purpose and include unusual suspects, people outside that you wouldn't normally include in your conversations, and see how that changes and improves the results that you have of using the liberating structures and sharing thinking generally. Definitely at this stage, think about designing effective meetings and find other users that you can federate with as a user group, right? The fear is, hey, Can we generate better than expected results without pre-cooked goals, agendas, and visions? I don't, I don't know, but explore it, lean into it, find out. When you're familiar with plus or minus half of the Liberating Structures toolkit, you'll find yourself in the space of rapturous super user, right? And at this point, focus on expanding the repertoire, learning more tools, getting yourself into more different environments with different groups and messier challenges. And, you'll notice that liberating structures, help you generate very innovative results while also shifting relational patterns and habits. I mean, you will find that these are exceptional tools for social network stimulation. Dave Snowden's got some really radical insights about how social network simulation is an awesome thing to have because it allows you to lean into informal relationships rather than relying on formal tools and process in order to get things done. Side note, that's why I think COVID has been such a disaster for working because effectively we've let social networking lapse. So we're very much left to rely on explicit processes and tools. I could talk all day. Let's move on. And you'll notice that, as a rapturous super user, you'll have some tendency of worrying about snapback into old habits. This you will notice, and it will be an irritant. Well, let me speak for myself. I notice this, and this irritates the ever-loving shit out of me. And then the last stage, as a maestro minimalist, when you're familiar with the whole toolkit, the goal then is to move into that stage of creative destruction whenever you can by transferring design expertise to the group, entering new domains, reaching across different scales and patterns, and try to enable people to not only shape the next steps in future, but learn how to shape the next steps in future. And the fear that maestro minimalists will recognize is that, as liberating structures become more and more embedded in the context, have I designed my own obsolescence? I mean, what's my job now that I've taught everybody in this environment how to make use of these tools? What do they need me for? And that's a salient question. I'm still exploring the answer to it myself. But effectively, this is the growth hierarchy for liberating structures at all. So you can see how you can use both the Ecocycle as well as this broader growth hierarchy to keep track of, your progress, what you got left to learn, and to, kick ass, take names, become a boss. Huge shout out to my sponsor, Accenture. I'm a business agility enabler at Accenture. So if you'd like to work with me and learn how to use liberating structures in the messiest context of business agility that you can imagine, hit me up. Let there be change, right? Again, my name's Jeremy Nathaniel Akers. Thanks for your time, attention, and energy. And I look forward to seeing you out there on the Liberating Structures Learning Journey.